Thanks, everybody. Hope all of you are well. Can you give me a little background on who is on the call today? Who we're speaking to? Is that fair?
Yeah, so we just had a discussion about it. So we
Okay.
have a large group from all over the world. We have people from pharmaceutical Mexico. We have retail customers from pretty much all over the world, including Brazil. We have some
hmm
consultants from
hmm
UK. We have several of the e-commerce and big organizations from Eastern Europe.
hmm
And that's kind of the we also have a representation from the Far East, and we also have representation
Oh,
from Asia. So we have a very diverse, very strong group of professionals and executives from all over the world.
great. Some people getting up late or getting up early, and some people staying up late. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for making the effort to be here. Appreciate it. And thank you for the introduction. I've been at Salesforce a little over 18 years now, and have obviously seen us grow from a 200. I think we were a little under 200 people when I joined, and today we're well north of 50,000 offices in Sao Paulo and throughout Asia Pac and the rest of Latin America, and obviously up in EMEA, and of course the U.S. and Canada. I do have a fairly sort of a baked talk track to walk you through for the next hour or so. But before I do that, I just wanted to give anybody on the phone the opportunity to maybe prompt me with anything that is top of mind, most interested, something you'd like to learn. I assume we'll be speaking certainly about digital transformation and other fun strategies along those lines. But wanted to see real quickly if anybody would like to ask a question before we even get started. And I think the answer is no. Okay.
Rob,
All
I
right.
might, I might, I might actually, I might prop it a little bit from our previous discussion. So,
Sure.
so I think as we have like a pharmaceuticals and a couple other highly regulated industry presence here, one
Mm-hmm.
of the questions that keep popping is that uh, how do you innovate when you see the internal reluctance, and how do you innovate when you see kind of the external pressure, right? So one thing is that everyone is saying, yeah, everything is great, everything is peachy and nice, and let's go and do it. But then the other way is that when you're trying to innovate, when you see internal pressure and when you see the external pressure as well.
Yeah. I think people are competing against competitors that they never really saw before. I think it's one of the more terrifying things for a lot of our customers. If you even look at the last 3 to 4 months, there's obviously been a massive shift in the priorities from our customers. And what's interesting is in many ways it accelerated change that they were resistant to make. And some of those changes that we've been talking about them with a long time would be a transition to digital channels, a transition to a more e-commerce related, for more sort of touchless support, if you will. And suddenly, those strategies went from nice to have to need to have. And there's generally a driver that is influencing one of our customers to make a change. And sometimes it's a competitor, sometimes it's a macroeconomic change that is happening, or a global crisis like the one we're in now. But more often than not, it seems to me that it's actually a customer driven requirement. Their customers are changing we always used to talk about the fact that in the consumer world, change happens first. In fact, our initial approach to Salesforce was the idea that, why can't enterprise software be as easy as buying a book on Amazon? And Amazon clearly sells more than books now. But at the time, it was just this idea that why should business technologies and business solutions be less friendly, less user friendly, less I don't know, colder, more, there was this concept of like these big behemoth, AS400 systems that were super hard to manage and really difficult to maintain and challenging to interact with either as an employee or as a customer. And sort of our approach was, the beginning was, let's bring that consumer experience to the business world. And I just see that sort of continuing to sort of be the way that people are approaching it. I mean, a lot of, especially in highly regulated industries, whether it's a government related or financial services or healthcare, there tends to be there's a tendency to like look at your peers and compare yourself against the experience that your peers are delivering to an end customer. And in reality, what I'm seeing is like, those are not the people that you should be comparing yourself to. That is not the bar you should be setting. The bar you should be thinking about setting is looking around you at the experience that you have with vendors like an Amazon or an Uber or any of the sort of the big disruptors out there, and think about what can I learn from the experience that they delivered to their customers, and then deliver that to my customers as well. And it's a really interesting shift to, and really kind of anchored around the concept of like putting the customer at the center of the business, which is not the way most companies were built, not the way that most companies have designed, not the way technology or organizationally they were deployed. They were deployed around a process, not around a person. One of our biggest customers to date is Federal Express, and the largest customer support issue that Federal Express had for years and years was basically, where is my stuff? That's what their customers were asking them constantly. What's ironic is that nobody knows where their stuff is better than FedEx. They scan it every time it passes through a city or onto a plane or down a conveyor belt. But their systems were designed to track and manage the package, not to deliver that experience or that information directly to the customer. And so that's been sort of a kind of an interesting example that I've seen that we're doing. Okay, so the question. So I'd like to know how Rob and Salesforce in general think about build to their solutions related to platforms. Oh, okay. So let me talk a little bit about this. So the question was, I think, was from Raphael, was around, how do we think about building our platform, our roadmap? How do we think about internal development issues versus external pressures and things along those lines? We have a really interesting scenario in the fact that we don't own our roadmap. So our customers literally define our roadmap, and I'll bring up some slideware that I could show you in a moment here. We can speak to a little bit. The challenge is now that I lose visibility of the presentation of the chat room. So
we'll read them up to you.
That'd be great. If you could relay it to me, that'd be fantastic.
Yep.
We are in an interesting scenario in the fact, like I was saying, we don't actually own our roadmap, and our roadmap has evolved significantly. And I'll jump around in this presentation a bit. This is sort of a very brief or a kind of a way to think about our roadmap over the years, and the way that we've evolved. And I won't go through a lot of detail about each and every one of these acquisitions or organic internal development. But this is really kind of a response. We're constantly responding to what our customers are asking for. And as a technology platform, we have a really interesting relationship with our customers in the fact that, we don't sell our customers anything. We don't sell them mobile solutions. We don't sell them marketing solutions. We basically rent a value proposition to them. So our customers leverage our platform as a service to drive value for their business. And we have a very unique relationship I don't think software as a service is anything, mind-blowing now like it was back in 1999. But this concept of a mutual relationship between our customers means that we have to hold ourselves responsible to adding value to them. And it's a fairly simple concept, but if we don't provide value to our customers won't provide value to us. And so from the very beginning, we have an extremely aggressive, what we call voice of the customer program, where we spend a tremendous amount of time out face-to-face or now digitally with our customers, surveying them, understanding how we can improve our existing product, where we need to make changes, where we need to plan for the future. And our CTO is our co-founder, a gentleman named Parker Harris. And one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard from him is that about 4 or 5 years ago, we were at an investor conference, and the question was asked of Parker, hey, thank you so much for sharing your 1-year roadmap. Can you share your 2-year roadmap and your 3-year roadmap? And Parker's response was, no, unfortunately, I can't, because my customers haven't told me what it is yet. And so this sort of relationship, this symbiotic relationship between ourselves and our customers really keeps us honest and keeps us accountable to the value that we deliver to them. So when we think about products and services, we're looking to our customers to tell us what we need to deliver to maintain their trust and maintain the value proposition that we bring to them into their business. A couple of things that get really interesting around this is the fact that basically we run most of you are probably familiar with sort of a multi-tenant architecture. So the idea that, you know, when I log on to my bank account, I'm not logging into my computer. I'm just logging into my information that is managed as a shared resource by the bank. So we take that approach and we do it on a massive scale. So every single one of our customers is running on the exact same version of our application. So the same code base. And they don't, you know, each customer has a different use case, and they certainly configure the system to fit their individual needs. But we maintain a standard code base across all of our customer base. And the way that that's accomplished, and not to get technical, but there's a layer on top of our platform. So a metadata layer where our customers actually describe what the solution looks like for them. And when I say describe it, it means, you know, what custom fields or data fields do they have? What workflow, what processes are built on top of our platform to support their business? And those changes are separate from the core innovation of Salesforce, so that the 3 times a year when we roll out a massive release of new capabilities, it doesn't change the customizations or the configurations that our customers have already made. So it allows us to innovate and bring new value to the customer relationship without damaging anything that they've already built. And a great example is like an apartment building, where you have the ability to decorate your own apartment and paint the walls a certain color, but we, as the landlord, have the opportunity to add a gym or a rooftop patio or a new HVAC system. But when we do that, we won't change the color of your walls or your carpet in your apartment, if that makes sense. So it creates a really interesting opportunity for us, and this democratization of software is something that the company was founded on originally. It obviously creates some challenges when you think about the fact that we have all these highly regulated industries that run on our platform: government, healthcare, financial services, and so on. And because everyone's running on the same platform, when we think about something like security, for example, we don't actually think about security from the view of a customer. We need to think of security from the view of every customer. So the hundreds of billions of dollars that we invest in the security of our platform is a shared resource that every single one of our customers benefits from. So that, the security slide, if we talk about our security model, it's a massively complex. It covers it's got certifications for healthcare and certifications for financial services and so and so and so. And so we create this opportunity for all of our customers to benefit from the fact that it's a shared services model that needs to be at the level of our most demanding customer. And so another way to think about it is like our most demanding customer sets the lowest common denominator. So everybody benefits from our most challenging or most security conscious customer, for example. The other thing that it does for us is it allows us to respond really quickly to global events. A couple of years ago, GDPR was a huge one for us, for our international customers out there. So what we were allowed to do was build capabilities into the platform to support GDPR, and immediately make those available to not just our biggest customers or our favorite customers, but to all of our customers. And when we entered into our current crisis with COVID-19, we were able to quickly deploy a product on our platform called Work.com, which is focused in on getting back to work and contact tracing and shift management. And so it provides a really interesting opportunity for us to create a value proposition across a massive audience of customers. Does that make sense? That was a fairly lengthy, a fairly lengthy answer to your question, Rafael. But I hope that was, I hope that's what you were thinking about. And if there are no other comments, I'll just continue on. Fair enough. All right. I always like to start every presentation, obviously, with a thank you for your time and coming to spend some time with me today. And then I've already sort of given you a bit of background on the, I've already given you a bit of background on the, I guess, the history of Salesforce, sort of our evolution as a product. We did start as a basic Salesforce automation tool. So for your VP of sales who is looking to manage their accounts, contacts, and opportunities, we were a great resource for them. Today, we've evolved into much more of an enterprise platform. So not helping I don't really think about our value proposition as helping a customer sell better or service their customers better. I do think we have an interesting opportunity to help our customers just be better. So with regards to helping them be faster, helping them be more responsive, helping them be more competitive, and in a big way, helping them be more customer-centric, which is a huge priority for them. And over the last 21 years or so, a tremendous amount has changed. What has really not changed is a culture and a company that is really focused in on a core set of values. And like I say, it's really about, creating value with values. And there are some people that will say, these have always been the values of Salesforce. That's not actually true. When the company started, our number one value was functional, based on the idea that we just had to make sure that the thing actually worked. Like that was our number one priority. We had to have a functional product for our customers. So that was our number one value. But for the last 5 or 6 years, it's really been these 4 core values. And they do really guide us on how we run the business. And I can explain it really quickly. It really starts with trust. So for example, when we're thinking about delivering a product to our customers, we need to make sure that, is this product going to be trusted? Is their data going to be secure? And, is this a product or a feature that's going to help our customers be successful? Because if our customers aren't successful, neither are we. And is this innovation that they actually want? Right? There are 2 kinds of innovation in my world. One is customer-centric, and the other one is ego-centric. And so we don't just innovate because it's fun to do. We innovate because our customers have told us what we need to do to help them be successful. And the final one is just really this sticking to this concept of equality. From a technology perspective, obviously making sure that each one of our customers has an equal opportunity to be successful. But in the other vein, we are focused in on being a good company. And what I mean by that is really sort of stepping up for the opportunity for each and every person to be their very best, regardless of their socioeconomic situation or where they grew up, or their race or their gender identity or their sexual preference. It shouldn't matter. And so the company has been very focused in on this idea of driving equality. And we do that through a number of programs, one of which is what we call our 1-1-1 model, where we give 1% of our time, equity, and our product back to the communities around us. And this 1% of time, our CEO's favorite joke is that when we founded the company, this was really easy because we had no equity, we had no time, and we had no product. But over the course of the last 20 years, you can see the significant impact that we've been able to make in the communities around us. It took us 12 years to get to our first 1 million hours of volunteer time. And now we average over 1 million hours a year of volunteer time. The opportunity for me to spend time at my children's school, to invest my time in causes that are important to me. And it's a very personal experience. So you're not asked to participate in a large, corporate type of event as much as you're encouraged to go back and do something that's important to you and the community around you. We also have this kind of a unique opportunity, I think, as many companies do, to, reimagine sort of their priorities. In a business that is in the business of just making money, and doesn't have a larger purpose, is something that I think we are leading a change in. And I think that companies want to, or I think that in your personal life, I think everybody's got experiences of wanting to do business with a company that actually does the right thing, whether it's a company that has more sustainable packaging, or a company that donates their profits back to nonprofits, or a company like Tom's Shoes, where if you buy a pair of shoes, they give a pair of shoes to someone who needs a pair of shoes. And you don't buy those shoes because they're the best shoes. And frankly, I've bought a pair just to confirm the fact that they're not that great a pair of shoes, which they're not, but that's not the reason that you buy them. You buy them because of the cause and what they represent. And so for me, I think that it's been a big part of our culture to make sure that we take advantage of the opportunity that we have to make the world a better place, whether it's through donating public education or protecting the environment through our renewable and our LEED certified offices, whether it's driving gender equality and making sure that everyone at Salesforce, regardless of their gender, is paid equally, which cost us $12 million when we actually took a look at our pay scales, and we actually went in and fixed it. Whether it's retraining folks, this pledge to America's 1 million jobs, like retraining America to be competitive and allowing people whose historical way of doing life, like mining coal, are going away, to have an opportunity to participate in this fourth industrial revolution, as we say. And then, obviously taking a larger stance around climate action. And what is interesting is that we used to show this slide, and we used to say, wow, isn't it great that we can be a leader in philanthropy and culture and innovation and also be successful financially? So sort of this concept of, isn't it great that we can do well as a company while we're doing good in the world? And what's interesting is that I mentioned earlier sort of the consumer-based choices that are made, and how consumers make choices based on brands they admire. What I'm finding more and more, especially as we become more integrated into the success of our customers, is that business-to-business relationships have a lot to do with a relationship that is based on trust, and people want to do business with companies that they respect, and that companies that care, and companies that are giving back. And so while we used to say, isn't it great that we can do both of these things at the same time, the more that I've thought about it recently, I'm not sure that we could do either unless we were doing both. So they have sort of fueled our success by not just doing well, but also just doing good. And I don't know that those are, ideas that resonate, but they are ideas that are super important to us and really define who we are as an organization. We do not just want to be a great technology company. We also want to be a good company, if that makes sense. We took this approach, and I mentioned this strategy of customer-driven or customer-led innovation. What's been exciting for us is that it sort of validated itself in the marketplace. And again, I'm not trying to talk about Salesforce being this really awesome company and us crushing our competitors. And what's interesting is you add up all of these numbers; they don't add up from the left to the right. What is happening with us is not necessarily just taking market share from our competitors, but it's also sort of a redefinition of what CRM is. And as our customers really refocus their attention on creating a great customer experience, it has really benefited us, because that's the way that our platform was architected, to put the customer at the center. Now, this is a slide that comes out of our corporate certification deck. Every year, we make every single employee of Salesforce get certified on the corporate message. And what is interesting is that when I have this slide presented to me the first time, I said, "Wow, what a mess! What a confusing slide this is." And it's true, because When our customers think about all the technologies that they can employ to build a business around their customer, they have to think about things like artificial intelligence and blockchain and voice and trust and IoT and connected products and connected apps. So the number of things that our customers need to think about to truly connect with their customers in a whole new way is a very, very intimidating world out there. And so what we've done as a company is think about, like, how can we help them with that? You know, how can we help them with these siloed data and disconnected customer experiences? And like I was mentioning earlier, compliance with things like GDPR and CCPA. But what's not on this slide, which I think is also important, is that when we talk about sort of a digital transformation or a move to customer centricity, I think it's safe to say that technology is the easy part. The one thing that is not on this slide is culture and organizational structure, and the way that companies need to not just rethink their technology strategy, but rethink sort of their go-to-market strategy, and reprioritize themselves not around an individual product or a line of business, or things along those lines, but actually rethink how their business is organized. Because that cultural shift, turns out, is actually the more challenging one. On the technology side, I think we've figured out a fairly easy way to help our customers imagine it. We call it this thing called Customer 360, which is a sort of I want to be clear, this is sort of a marketecture, but not necessarily an architecture. And I'll speak to the architecture in just a moment. But what you see here is the various business functions that our customers are supporting, and then the various aspects of our platform that we built into it. So our customers don't need to worry about how blockchain works. They just need to think about, how could I use blockchain in my commerce solutions? What would I do with it? Now that I have access to it, now that it's natively built into the platform, how would I use blockchain? How would I use AI? How would I use voice? How would I better use different capabilities? And so that's what's interesting. The second thing that I want to point out here is that these individual functions, such as sales, service, marketing, these are not individual products. What these are is, really think of them as like features of a platform. And the big idea of a platform strategy for me is that it makes a company smaller. It democratizes not just software, but democratizes data, so that data that's generated during a sales transaction can be leveraged in the next service transaction or a marketing transaction. And when you combine transactions, you create experiences. When you leverage transactions, you create experiences. And so that is really what the focus of this Customer 360 is, not to divide your company into these cute little icons around the circle, but to unite your customer, to unite your company and the business processes to all build around and support the customer at the center. And like I mentioned, this is sort of a marketecture slide. This is sort of the more architecture version of it. And I'll just maybe take a deep breath at this point, and see if there are any more questions that I should address before I move forward. Are we okay? All right. Yeah. Is anyone still there? Can I ask that question?
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually.
We are here.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. I don't know. I want to make sure.
Thanks.
Katrina, did you have a question?
I can see that you've got MuleSoft on there, and I'm actually on a API transformation project at the moment. I'll add my question in. I'll listen to your presentation. I'll add it into the chat box.
Well, you can just go ahead and ask it. It's all right.
Okay, so as part of the digital transformation process, not many people are speaking or have addressed digital monetization of your assets.
Yes.
And of course, you can do that with APIs. Can I find out how Salesforce are addressing ad revenue and making, looking at different ways of monetization in a changing market? Because I think that's going to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the question. And here's how I think about it. I so if you were a CIO
Mhm.
and you visited me in our offices 6, 7 years ago, you would have told me that your job as a CIO is to protect the data of your organization from everyone else in your organization,
Yeah.
right? I need to keep my data clean. I need to keep my data centralized. I need to keep my data locked down. Now, if you talk to a CIO, they say that their role is how do I, and it's not a totally politically correct term, but how do I weaponize data?
Yeah.
How do I turn data into a strategic advantage for my organization? And what that involves is pushing data out to the edges, out to the edges of your organization and beyond.
Yeah.
So how do I empower partners with data? How do I empower customers with data? How do I create better experiences with data? And the crazy thing for me is that I have never had a customer say we have too little data.
Yeah.
Every single one, to a fault, says we have way too much and we can't use most of it, and most of it's useless,
Mm.
right? So, our strategy from a bottoms up perspective is to turn data into a strategic advantage for an organization rather than an underutilized asset.
Great.
So, for us, we always sort of have looked historically to where does the data live, and all the data doesn't always live in Salesforce. Data doesn't, reside only in a CRM solution. There's a lot of back office systems, the SAPs, the Googles, the IBMs, the Oracles, all the traditional sort of back office systems. And what is interesting for us is, when I have I'm sure most of you are familiar with someone like SAP, right? So when I have a large SAP customer, I get excited because I know that I have an opportunity to improve the return on the investment that they've made with SAP
Yeah.
by taking that data that is locked up in a transactional back office system and do something with it to add value to their employees or their customers or their partners.
Exactly.
The reason that we made our acquisition of MuleSoft, and MuleSoft, I think it's been almost 2.5, 3 years now, but it was a $6.8 billion acquisition of the company.
Wow.
And the reason we did it was this, is that the best way to think about MuleSoft is to think of MuleSoft as an orchestration layer. When you think about an orchestra, imagine going to see a band play or an orchestra play, and imagine if every single instrument in the orchestra pit was playing off of a different sheet of music. All you'd have is a whole bunch of noise being generated. What MuleSoft really helps us to do is to normalize or orchestrate that data and turn it into a usable stream, or turn it into music that our business can listen to. And that's kind of a stretch for an analogy, but I'm going to keep going with that. Okay,
It's fine.
that's right. It works pretty good, actually. And so once we have access to that data in a usable format, then we need to think about the sort of the shared services that need to be put. And again, these are the shared services on the bottom right side of this platform.
Yeah.
So we need to think about, how do we keep that data secure through privacy and identity? How do we make it searchable? How do we leverage you to store it? How can we help you collaborate around the data? So we create a lot of shared services that are built natively into the platform to help serve as a foundational aspect to make sure that data is in a usable and secure format.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing we do is we try to figure out, all right, what do our customers want to do with it? They want to build things with it. They want to create process, workflow. They want to apply maps to it. They want to publish it on a mobile device. And this is where it gets really interesting to me. When you think about Salesforce, most of the applications that run on our platform are not our applications.
Yeah.
Okay? The ones on the top row are the ones you hear about. But in reality, sort of the best way to think about the way we've deployed our platform is to think about your iPhone, and to think about the fact that, very much like Apple, who has this as their platform, we have a platform too. We call ours the customer success platform. They call theirs the iPhone. Some of the apps on this platform came from Apple. iTunes, ever popular Find My iPhone, those things came on this app. But most of the apps on this phone have nothing to do with Apple. They are bought at something called the App Store, which we have something called the App Exchange.
Yeah.
And there's a very, very large network of independent software vendors who build value-added apps that leverage the data, the services, and the tools their enlightening to build applications to leverage like the mapping capability, location awareness, all the capabilities that Apple has built into this platform allows ISVs to extend the value proposition of that data by creating apps.
Yeah.
So we've sort of done the same thing in the fact that, yes, there are 8 or 9 core applications that we deliver to our customers, but there are 5,000 applications on our App Exchange that have been built by software vendors. And more exciting to me is about 7 million applications that have been built by our customers who leverage the same tool sets that we have to extend the value of our platform to fit a specific challenge that their business has. Okay. The last few years have really, we spent a lot of time focusing in around Einstein or artificial intelligence. I think we bought the Einstein. Anyway, Einstein is the name that we use to think about holistically our entire suite of intelligence products. And I think for a very, very long period of time, you know, the value of CRM was based on this concept of a 360-degree view of your customer, which, you know, that was like the idea, like as a salesperson, I could see all the data about my customer. You know, I could see data from the back office. I could see their billing history. I could see all of this great stuff. And a service provider, right? I could see the service experience for this customer, all the cases they submitted, all these things. For me, that goal has been achieved. And then the next goal is, how do we move that from dumb to smart? And what I mean by that is just having all of the data in front of me doesn't really help me, because I can easily be overwhelmed by data, which is what was really valuable to me as a customer is if that data could do some of the work for me, right? If that data could tell me, like, I think a great example is next best action. Based on all the data I have about my customers, who are the 5 customers I should call right now? What should I talk to them about and why? As a marketing professional, what marketing campaign would be best suited for each and every customer in my universe? And not in a manual process, but doing an automated process, an intelligent process at scale. That for me is the really big game changers. Like, not only how do we provide access to data, but how do we create more value from data by making that data smarter? My favorite example, hands down, is a little company here in the Bay Area called Amazon. And, you know, I don't actually consider myself an Amazon customer. I consider myself an Amazon victim, because what they have done is use the data they have about me to make me a better customer of Amazon, right? I don't have an account executive. I don't have anybody that's responsible for making recommendations on products I might be interested in. They just use the data to make those recommendations, and they actually put the data to work. So that's really the next goal, I think, for a lot of our customers is, how do we actually put data to work and have it do the heavy lifting, right? Because, you know, you can through things like our community environments, you can really influence the behaviors of a customer with intelligent messaging that's data driven. You can turn them into better customers. You can create a better experience for them. And when you create a better experience for them, you create a better experience for yourself too, which is something that we're really focused on. Was that a fairly lengthy answer to a fairly simple question?
That's absolutely great. Thank you so much. I'm in talks with Musoft, so that's fine. Thank you for bridging that gap.
Yeah, you know, I'll say this one last thing. When we acquired them, I was like, how much money? 6.8, what? You know? But very quickly in my conversations with customers, it became apparent that it was the best acquisition we've ever made.
It's fantastic.
Because data makes the world go round.
Yeah.
And again, it was our largest application until Tableau, which really was, again, a data grab, because we wanted to get access to all those great processes and analytics and data that Tableau has applied to the back office and bring those to the front office as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See how easy that was to ask a question, everybody? I just want to be clear that, you know, That was really nice to Katrina. So if anybody else has a question, feel free to ask as well. Okay.
Yes, hi, I'm Herman from Mexico, also from Novartis. And I also have a doubt, you're talking about all the importance of data, but
Uh-huh.
how about the data transformation inside a company? Because all companies, we mentioned that we have a lot of data, but
Hmm.
sometimes internally in a company, some people want to see all data that we have, and maybe it's not all the data that we need to visualize.
Yeah.
So what about this cultural change also in the way we perceive data and the way that we are using data? Do you have any recommendations or any journey
Yeah.
that we can go through?
Yeah. It's a
Thanks.
great question. I mean, you don't want to be, I mentioned this sort of a bit earlier, you don't want to be overwhelmed with data. Like, I do not want to see all the data that Salesforce has. It would be, I have no reason. In fact, it would create more work for me if I saw everything. What I need to see is what's important to me. And one of the things I didn't really talk about is that when you are a user of our platform, you are not exposed to everything. You don't have to see commerce if that's not your area of the world. What you can do is you can create a view or a portal or a layout or a profile or whatever terminology makes sense to you that allows you to stay focused on the data that's most important to you, right? And so, yeah, I think it's really easy to overwhelm customers by like throwing all the data in front of you. That's not the goal. The goal is to make sure that we have all the data to all the access to all the data, but then to think about how do we prioritize and put the right data in front of you, right? So what data, using artificial intelligence based on your role to determine what data would be most valuable to you and presenting it to you in a timely manner in the right context. That's the big goal. Does that make sense what I said?
And yeah, but that's an investment, no? Using artificial intelligence to have data. Uh, but how about I believe that this is the right message. The importance to invest in that kind of tools like Einstein, for example, that
Uh-huh.
we have a limited use of Einstein, uh, to capture the data that we or that every single user needs to view in order to make some decisions for their strategies, right?
Yeah. Let me say this. People always ask, like, what are you guys going to be working on for the next 3 to 4 years? Like, what's your roadmap? I think we have a very, very long road ahead of us with regards to analytics and AI. Right now, I really believe that what we are is, and we have some areas where we're very strong, for like court sales support, next best action, that scenario that I mentioned earlier. But for other areas, I think we're learning right alongside of our customers, and very early in this artificial intelligence, which honestly at this point feels to me like intelligent workflow. If A and B, then C. Some people consider that to be artificial intelligence. I just consider it to be workflow processes, right? And so it's kind of interesting to like this concept of connecting the dots. Some of the areas where I'm really excited about is we're doing things like Einstein Discovery. And Einstein Discovery is like when you release an artificial intelligence bot on your data and it just looks for patterns. It looks for, it learns. It's a fascinating world. I feel like it's really early. And the exciting thing for me is the partnership that we have with our customers to figure out how we actually make this stuff valuable. Again, going back to that concept around innovation, is it egocentric innovation or is it customer-centric innovation? Like artificial intelligence that doesn't drive value for our customers is useless to me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, that's the fun thing is like each and every customer probably has sort of like the easy low hanging fruit, if you will, sort of artificial intelligence concepts. And then they've got like the big audacious goals. And so for each customer, we're sort of, making those incremental improvements to their business with what would I call like sort of little AI, but then also working with them on much grander processes around, like clinical trials, for example. or reading, reading diagnostic images, for example. Like those kinds of artificial intelligence are also things that are incorporated into our strategy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
You
Rob.
bet. Okay, and say hi to the kids for me, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions before I proceed? All right. So a couple of things that I mentioned this a bit earlier. What's been really fulfilling for me is the partnership that we've had with our customers during a very challenging time right now. I really like the way that our organization has stepped up as a partner to our customers and really listened to them. And so what we've heard is, and these messages are a bit dated now as we move sort of along through the pandemic, but this idea of stabilizing, reopening, and then growing your business. I think what's fascinating for me is that I'm hearing a lot of customers who they say things like, I'm spending 30% of my time dealing with the current state of the world and 90% of my time thinking about what's going to happen next. And so a lot of our customers have moved from that initial sort of shock and awe of dealing with the immediate requirements of the pandemic to think about in a really interesting, and not to be tone deaf about it, but sort of thinking about how do I make sure that that I don't miss the opportunity of this crisis, right? How do I make sure that I don't miss the opportunity to redefine the way I go to market? I think that a lot of our customers are, and I mentioned this a bit earlier, for example, one of my customers I'm the exec sponsor on is a company called Fox Racing. And Fox Racing makes mountain bike equipment, helmets and, jerseys and shorts and gloves and things along those lines. Their distribution channel was made up of about 3,000 retailers across the U.S., was in the U.S. in their domestic channels. Conversations, a couple of months ago with their CEO, his perspective was 30% of those 30% of those small businesses that were my distributors are not going to come back. And so it created this sort of digital mandate for them to double down around not responding to the new normal, but coming to the realization that this is normal. Like depending on Google, for example, just announced that they are not going to reopen their offices in the Bay Area until August of next year. Think about that, like a full year from now. So what's interesting is that just like all of you, I've been forced to adjust to a new normal, but also come to the realization that the new normal is just normal now. And companies are more and more being sort of asked to change faster than they wanted to, or change faster than they were planning on. And this concept of like, how do we digitally transform is a conversation that we're having a lot with our customers. And again, it's really driven by a few things. Number one is like, your customers demanded you deliver a less than superior customer experience, your customers are going to go somewhere else. And just ask anybody that used to drive a taxi cab in the US if that's the case. And you can see what happens when an innovator moves into a space, like Amazon moving into when they acquired Whole Foods, a large grocery retailer here in the US. Like the impact was exciting for them and just disastrous for everyone else. And then, your employees also need it. Like employees, especially now, look at the company, the Zooms, the Slacks of the world, the companies that focused in on delivering a great collaborative digital experience are thriving in this market because collaborative digital experiences are the only experiences that we have right now. So a lot of pressure and added pressure on companies to change how they act. And, we have a lot of experience doing it. So, I feel like we've got a great platform to do it. We've got the right values. We've got a lot of experience with customers. And then a lot of insight, a lot of listening to our customers that have sort of informed us on how we can help them. And there's kind of like sort of a couple of things that are happening in our world. The first one is that a lot of people confuse transformation and renovation, right? So renovation is when you change a process. So help you sell better, help you service better, or help you market better. A transformation actually involves in like, how do we rethink the way that we operate as a company, not as a business unit or not in silos. Renovation is easy because as a leader, I don't need to talk to anybody else about the company about renovating, because I just do what I do and it's my world and I just do however I choose. When you move to when you sort of cross that chasm, as we love to talk about here at Salesforce, you find yourself in a different mindset, a mindset that says, hey, it's not about the value proposition that I deliver to the business or deliver to the customer. It's out the overall value proposition that we deliver as an organization to the customer. And a lot of times the gap is around two things. It's around alignment and execution. A lot of times a really great message from leadership doesn't make it down through the rest of the organization, or the org doesn't have the capabilities or the business processes, the tech infrastructure. They want to do it, but they just don't have the internal discipline or systems or processes or talent set to actually accomplish it. And where we sort of thread the needle, I think, is like helping customers cross that is by thinking about something called evolve. And evolve is sort of a middle step between renovation and transcending. It is the fundamental thought process or mindset around how do we put our customers at the center of our business. And when we think about that, there's really like four basic criteria that we're thinking about. The first one is around customer-centric business processes. And I mentioned this earlier with our friends at someone like Federal Express, right? They were process-centric business processes or product-centric business processes, but they weren't built around the customer, right? The customer is more important than the product. The experience is more important than the product. And a lot of customers are learning that, hopefully the easy way, but some of them are learning it the hard way. The second one is sort of this one team aligned around the customer. This is sort of a leadership, getting everybody on the same page. If I'm sitting in front of a group of executives, one of my questions I'll ask them is, are you all sitting around the table here because you want to be here or because the leadership of your company told you had to be here? And too often it's the latter, right? Where, teams are being begrudgingly dragged into this concept of being aligned around the customer. But really transformative organizations have focused in on making sure that that's the way they operate. The leanest technology stack, I think this is sort of the concept around data primarily. I mean, Salesforce is a data company. Most companies, whether they know it or not, are actually data companies as well. And the more difficult it is to move data from one process to another or one view to another, the more challenging it is to create value with data. So leanest technology platform might also be associated with like less technology platforms, right? Or building on a platform versus building in a number of sort of segmented or disconnected silos. I think that one's a fairly well thought through concept. The fourth one is interesting because I think it's something that listening to what your customers are saying, and what I like to call like suspending certainty. So it's kind of this concept of beginner's mind. Like we have a lot of customers who have been doing the same business for 200 years, 150 years. Barclays Bank, for example. Their need to change has gone through this massive acceleration in the last 5 years. Traditional business models are being attacked by upstart and much more agile competitors because they don't need to bring a lot of the legacy to the table. And so listening to your customers and adapting to what your customers are asking for is also more important than ever. one quick thing that we think about is we have an internal process where we use, this is how we sort of build our business plans for the year. And every year we go through an exercise where we sort of reprioritize what's important to our business. And what I ask our customers to do is think about how they get everybody aligned on the same page, same plan. How do I drive consistency? You know, how do I make sure that among a group of 10 executives, I ask each one of them what their top 5 business objectives are, that each one of them shares the same 5 business objectives? It doesn't happen very often. So we oftentimes work with customers and go through a process of helping them build out sort of their strategic plan or our strategic plan alongside of them. What's interesting is most people go from left to right. You know, they start with a big vision of, you know, what do we want to be when we grow up, and what do we want to do, and they do values, then they talk, what are we going to do, and it's going to be great, and what's going to get in the way, and then they think about how do they measure success. My advice to everybody is always do it from right to left, to be thinking about, first off, think about measures. Think about the tangible business impact improvements that you expect from some sort of a digital transformation, and build your strategy around the business, not around a vision for the business. Build your strategy around the financial improvements you want to make, the margin improvements you want to make, the top line, the bottom line. The biggest challenge I have with most people who are in a digital transformation role is they don't know what success means to the business. They can, you know, I'll say, they say we want to digitally transform. I'll say, well, why do you want to digitally transform? They say, well, digital transformation is really important. I'm like, well, why is it important? Well, because people need to digitally transform. I'm like, that's great. Why do they need to digitally transform? And we get into this round and round conversation because people are afraid to put a stake in the ground to say, this is the business goal. If you don't have a business goal that you are tied to, your digital transformation is a waste of time, because no one's going to buy into it. No one's going to understand. Top KPIs are like universal rallying cries for most businesses, but most digital transformation strategies are not built around them. And that is sort of my final thing, is to really be thinking about, when you're going through or thinking about a digital transformation, make sure it's going to benefit the business, and understand how it's going to benefit the business, and communicate that with the business, and it'll make that digital transformation a lot easier to accomplish. Okay? That was kind of what I had to speak to you all about today. I think I might be a little light on time, and apologize to the folks in Silicon Valley, but I'm certainly happy to answer any additional questions that you guys have.
Yeah, let's open up the floor for the audience members. If you guys would like to unmute yourself and ask the question yourself, you can do that as well. If you are feeling shy, you can go ahead and type it into the chat box as well. And go ahead and ask your questions if you'd like, audience members.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for your time. And know that myself and everybody here at Salesforce is, I mean, I'm sure many of you are already customers, so thank you for that. But, you know, feel free to challenge us as a partner. My big challenge in life is how do I turn us from a vendor to a partner with our customers? You know, how do I become an instrumental partner in planning their future, executing on their future, and delivering on that future future state that they have in mind for both themselves as an organization and their customers. So please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or anyone on our teams. We'd love the opportunity to help be a part of your future. Okay.
Thank you.
Rob, if you don't mind, we actually do have a few questions if you have a few minutes.
Oh, I do.
Oh, great. All right. So let's have you answer a couple questions for us. To you yourself, what do you feel as though is the main obstacles in digital transformation?
Metrics. Well, 2 things. Number 1, well-defined goals. And the second one is really a change management strategy. So technology, from a digital transformation perspective, technology is the easiest part. The cultural change, the people change, the behavioral change, that is what really needs to have more thought in most of the customers that I've dealt with. They simply have not taken into consideration how difficult it is to get customers or get employees to change their behavior. If you've been doing the same thing for 100 years, suddenly asking a customer to digitally transform is really challenging. And really, I do believe it comes down to business metrics. So sometimes a lot of digital transformation initiatives that I've seen are irrelevant because they can't demonstrate how they're relevant to the business. And it sounds really crazy. I mean, you'd think that they would have that, but it's shocking to me how often there's not a tangible business benefit that's clearly identified with a digital transformation. That it gets, because that's what's going to eliminate or make it difficult to get sponsorship, internally, and support for a project like that internally. Those are the big ones for me.
Thank you so much for that. The next question up here is, what is your recommendation to fuel this digital transformation in an organization? Or simpler, where is the best place to start the digital transformation?
Man. Okay, so I think, and kind of coming back to the conversation we were having with Katrina, I think any digital transformation is driven by data. And I think that most organizations would be best served by clearly identifying a data strategy or a data architecture prior to thinking about a big digital transformation. You can digitally transform in pockets, but to do it holistically, it really needs to be driven and supported by a more comprehensive data strategy. So I know it sounds kind of boring, but data is really valuable, and it's probably the most underutilized asset that most of our customers have. So that's the first thing, is I would really start like looking at a fundamental data strategy as part of it. The second one is to prioritize around the KPIs of the business. So don't digitally transform just because you can. Find an area, and I think one interesting question to ask yourselves is two questions. Number one is like, are you easy to do business with? And the second one is it easy to do business with each other? And if you were to ask your customers, this sense and respond, if you're about to ask them and say, hey, where are the areas where you'd like to see us improve the way we do business with you? I guarantee you will get answers. And based on those answers, it kind of gives you a good example of where we should start. Maybe it's in our customer portal. Maybe it's in our support mechanisms. Maybe it's in our marketing. I'm not sure, but your customers will tell you. The other group of people that you really need to pay attention to are your internal customers, your salespeople, your marketing people, your customer support people. They will help you define a roadmap if you give them the opportunity to do so.
Thank you so much for that. The next question up on here is how or why necessarily we speak about so much about digital transformation and it's so important and it needs to be done, but why is digital transformation necessary for traditional businesses?
Survival, competitiveness. I mean, honestly, we have a lot of very, very traditional businesses that we work with. And, I think that a company that has a digital mindset is by default going to be more competitive because they can respond to opportunities faster, right? They can adapt. And adaptation, to quote our friend Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest that survive or not the biggest that survive. It's the ones who have the ability to adapt to the circumstances around them faster than other companies or faster than other animals that are the ones that survive. So that for me is a fairly, I know it's a fairly, I don't want to say a dire prediction, but customers that want to survive, you know, against an onslaught of competitors that are known and unknown, or macroeconomic changes, or new product categories that emerge, the ones that can digitally transform, digitally enabled, are the ones that are going to be more competitive.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate you being able to answer all our questions here and the buildup of questions here at the end. Audience members, if you have a question, I believe there was one that just came in from the audience members.
Okay.
How do you begin transforming a company that's opening a heavily regulated environment, where almost everywhere you take already has a rule on how to transfer environment prior to their own company?
Yeah, well, certainly you got to play by the rules that are laid out by the industry or regulatory agencies associated with you. You know,
But sorry to interrupt. But that's precisely my point, because when you see the history, I'm not gonna say all, because all is not accurate, but a lot of digital companies, or companies that have improved or innovate on the digital side, for example, Uber, they have played on a gray area of regulation. And after they start operating, the regulations come, and then you find a balance. But what about when you are in the middle of a heavily regulated environment and everything is controlled, and then you have to move? So how do you start making the move? You cannot change the law like easily.
so give me an example, Marcelo.
Pharmaceutical company. We work at Novartis.
Okay.
So everything in pharmaceutical sales, marketing, everything that you do is regulated. There are authorities, or FDA, for example, EMA in Europe. So they regulate
Right.
how do you communicate to physician, patients, everything that you do.
Yeah. And you have responsibilities for documentation and processes, and making sure that all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. And generally those processes, especially this company like Novartis, are generally tend to be extremely manual and
Mm-hmm.
extremely cumbersome and difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So that is sort of a digital strategy for me right there, is, you know, where do I look at where it is that, where are the manual processes inside my organization that I can digitize without sacrificing or compromising my adherence to rules and regulations. And Novartis is a pretty good sized customer of ours, I believe.
Yeah, it is. But that's precisely one of the issues that we were having this conversation on the previous session.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are like a big pharma, when you already have like a way of doing things, it's very hard to change, because from one side you already know how to, and you're already very good at it, and
Yep.
on the other side you are heavily regulated. So why take the chances? Like, why move forward? Why do things differently if we're already doing it fine? So that is when you hit like a
Yeah.
how do I change it? Because we need to improve. We need to.
Well, I mean, and again, maybe it comes back to the concept of measurements. Like, you can't digitally transform unless you have a reason to do so. So, you know, unless we've spent the time to identify the, you know, those manual processes, or can quantify the value of quantify the value of digital transformation, it'll be really difficult to generate momentum inside a traditional business. It's one of the things we're challenged by, honestly, is like, how do we promote, or how do we encourage digital transformation inside an organization that feels like they don't have to? It's not necessarily that they couldn't. A lot of times it's because they don't feel like they need to. That's a big challenge for us. But maybe we should do this, Marcelo. Maybe you and I should connect, and we'll connect up with the Novartis team here at Salesforce. We'll figure out how we're helping you guys. Just curious.
Sure
We can
do.
do that. Okay,
Thank
cool.
you so much.
You bet. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. This was great. I'll give you a couple of minutes back to maybe I don't know, hang out with the kids like we were doing earlier, or whatever you guys need to do. But thanks again for your time, and please, if there's an opportunity for myself or any of us to help you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Thanks again, Rob, for joining us.
Thank you guys. Have a great